ahead.
I mean, you've come over with Coach Dickert from Washington State. You know, what's the biggest differences you've been able to see so far?
You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing from the young men, I'm seeing from the team, I'm seeing confidence. I'm seeing confidence in they're knowing their job, they're trusting the scheme, they're learning the scheme, they're seeing things faster, and they're playing together. And they're playing fast, and that's the fun part about watching them.
What's the biggest adjustment you've had in making this transition?
You know, I don't know. There is no adjustment. Ball's ball. You know, it's ball's ball. So there's really no adjustment. I mean, the main adjustment is can't wait to get my wife out here in July. You know, and have my family and get out of Babcock Hall and actually have a house to live in. So that's been the big adjustment living on campus.
They put you in Babcock?
Well, for me, I wanted to because I'm close. I'm only a 5-minute walk away. I'm here at the office. I'm close, so that's the best way to go.
What was it about working with Coach Dickert that made following him to Winston-Salem and being a part of the Wake Forest program something you'd want to do?
Well, we've been together for so long. You know, we started our journey at Wyoming together. We brought him in, we hired him as a safeties coach, and Coach Hayes was a defense coordinator at that time. And to be back with Hayes is number one. But to be with Dickert, when I went to Washington State with Dickert, he's transformational. He's going to change lives. Yeah, we're truthful with everybody. It's about building young men. The game's the game, but we do this. We got into coaching to grab the souls of young men and to love them and to show them their identity is just not football. Their identity is who they are beyond the game, and that's what I love about Coach Dickert, because football's in there, but they're becoming men and they're learning who they are, and that's why I followed them, because of the transparency and the transformation, how we can just pour into these young men. That's what I love about him.
When you worked with him at Wyoming, when he was safeties coach, did you see that type of future leadership in him?
Yeah, you know, he can't, yeah, exactly, because when Coach Hayes left, I remember he was the first on the docket to be the defensive coordinator, step in and take over the helm. And then when he came in and took over the room, I mean, he's a brilliant man. And so I saw those qualities right off.
When you got to Winston-Salem, you get here, you see the players that you're kind of inheriting. What did you see that was available to you and that you could kind of mold and teach?
You know, it's funny. I don't use the word inherit, and the reason why, because no matter where you're at, your job's to coach. Your job is to coach no matter who's on the field, because every one of them has the best sitting inside of them. Now, do they know it, and do they believe it, and do they have the confidence? And so as you coach them all the same, because all of a sudden that young man's like, oh, I can do this. Coach believes in me. He sees something, and pushing him and straining him. So it's not about inheriting anything. It's about pouring who I am into every one of those young men every stinking day.
And then what kind of progress have you seen over the last 4 weeks? What are we at? 13 practices now so far. What have you seen in terms of progress from this team?
Technically, I'm talking deep front right now. Team-wise, defensively, they're running hot. They're running the ball, like I said. They're trusting one another. They're seeing things faster. The technique that's been coached for the last 13 practices, you're starting to see it unfold. But then even up front, they're starting to dissect. Like I always say, what's the intention of the block? Because as soon as it leaves, an offensive lineman is never going to lie to me. I know if it's inside zone, outside zone, or gap scheme, and I got the hi-hat. So let's go fly.
You guys went after a ton in the portal on the defensive front. Dallas, Noor, Gabe. How happy are you with the results you've gotten from the guys you went out to go get?
You know, with Dallas, very, very pleased with Dallas. You know, Dallas was a young man that I recruited when I was at Washington State back in Seattle, and you know, he had the opportunity to go to Idaho. He went to Idaho, and I've always kept my eyes on him and kept, you know, he's a good young man. So I knew him previously, but his energy and his strain, I absolutely love.
That's kind of the way it works now, right? I mean, even if you don't get someone right away out of high school, you may have a chance at them again a year or 2 years down the road. So you're keeping eyes on guys all over the country, aren't you?
Well, you know, I don't want to say you're keeping eyes on them. It's when you're recruiting, you make sure you build that relationship. And like I tell every young man, it's not about Wake Forest. It's not about the school that you choose to go to. It's where's the fit for you. You know, what culture grabs your heart? And if it grabs your heart, that's where you're going to succeed. And then if it doesn't, then as long as that relationship's built, so if they do decide to go in the portal later on in their career, then that relationship, there's a foundation there with them, and then you can go from there. But other than that, no matter where they're at, I want them to go and be successful.
You talk about building that relationship. Does that make it a bit easier when you're coming across the country and recruiting in an area you haven't recruited at before?
I guess when you say that, it's I always want, like I said before, I want to know the depths of the soul of a young man. I want to know who they are, because that's when you know the depths of the soul of a young man, that means they trust you, because they're transparent in their conversations. And when they're transparent in their conversations and that trust is built, then we can go as far as we want to go, right? And so that's why I say this is always built off of love. It's always built off of love, because love never fails.
To Cam's point earlier, from a Wake Forest fan perspective, they're probably going to look at the defensive line early to start this season and really not recognize a whole lot of names, because your whole room is rebuilt, right?
Yeah.
How are they producing so far, and who's really stood out to you? I know Langston's had a great camp. Who else has done really well for you?
Well, I look at Zach. I look at Zach Loha. He is really, and he played last year.
Yeah.
He had like 353 snaps last year. But he's so intelligent. Like I can say something to him without saying it on film, and he does it. I'm like, wow. Okay, so that's really good. Mateen's a young man who really is, and this is what it comes down to Mateen. Mateen now believes in what he can do. I see the confidence in him, and I can see the smile. I can see the glow in his eyes. That's what it is with Mateen. It's always been sitting there, right? And now you see that, and then Wyatt's done a good job. Wyatt's improved. Chris and KT, they've all improved, and then Loving's coming in, and Loving's, he's been taking some limited reps during the spring, and he's done a good job. But it's just their focus. They're coming out, and like I tell them, I want guys that encourage one another all the way through practice, because we need everybody, right? So there's a standard. If someone's not meeting the standard, pick them up. If we don't pick them up, then we'll start the thing over, and we'll start this whole thing. We'll do it all over again. So it's a part about the connection, the bond in the room, and when they connect, that's when it starts to blossom.
The general perception among probably us scribes, as well as many of the coaches we've talked to, is that the defense has kind of been a step ahead of the offense through most of the camp. And a lot of times that starts up front. Are you generally happy with what you've seen out of camp, and what else do y'all need to accomplish over the next few days?
I'm never going to be happy, just so you know. I'm never going to be satisfied. I won't be, because it can always be one step better. It can always be one more. I mean, the block destruction can always be one notch higher in what we do. So I'm never going to be happy with it. But as long as you've been doing this, the defense is normally always a step ahead going in the first scrimmage. And then after in fall camp, all of a sudden that offense catches up in the second. They catch up because it's timing. The offense is so much timing. I mean, it is an orchestra. And you have to orchestrate those 11 guys, and plus the 5 guys in the front have to be orchestrated. Where defense, that's what I love about defense, I can play chaotic, right? I got my gap, I have my movements, and we do what we do and go. So that's normally how it flows.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks,
All right.
Thanks, Pete. Working with Damon.
It's awesome. He's one of those guys who make your job a lot easier when he's got the ball in his hand. So just coach him up, tell him what to do, and he goes out there and does it plus some. So pretty awesome coaching.
Does he remind you of any other former Wake Forest running back?
Yeah, he does. He's got a little Kenneth Walker in him. He does. Some people ask me that comparison all the time. They're very similar, but they're different in their play style as well. But they're both elite players. They do a lot of things well. They're real coachable, and they love football. So it's easy to coach guys who love to come out there and compete every day.
What do you do to manage his workload during camp, yet still make sure that he's ready for fall camp when the season starts, without wearing him down?
Well, the whole key is putting him in situations where I think he needs to improve. So for instance, I make sure he gets every pass block out there just so he can see a lot of different looks, and that way he can work on his eyes and he'll be able to pick blitzes up when we get to game time. And also, some of the run schemes that I think he does well, he's mastered that, so I kind of move on to the next deal. But it's all about putting him out there, obviously in different situations, in a controlled manner where he could go out there and develop and learn those things first, and then we can go ahead and move on to the next one. So we don't want to put him out there every single time right now, but it's what he needs to work on and what he feels he also needs to improve on as well.
Do you ever feel sometimes you have to rein him in a little bit? Because Damon's a guy who will sit here and tell us, yeah, I can carry the ball 35 times a game, and he probably believes that he can. Do you ever find yourself having to rein him in?
Early on, but now I think he kind of understands how how the professional level works. I've kind of tried to coach him up and talk to him about how it's going to be when he does get that opportunity. So you got to maximize every rep, and when you get to the next level, sometimes a lot of those mental reps they're turning to game reps because you're not getting every rep. So he's been fine as of late. He's done a good job of understanding and taking the coaching and the feedback from not just myself, but Coach Ezel, Coach Castor, and Coach Dicker also. So he's done well.
Damon's the headliner, but Drew Pickett might be one of the best stories of camp. Ty Clark's carrying the ball well. What have you seen out of the deaf guys in that room?
It was one of those deals where you had to break some old habits. We're obviously transitioning into a new system. So for them, it's breaking old habits. And obviously Damon's he's very explosive. So for him, it was a lot easier. But those other guys, as time went on, Ty, Drew, and also Tate Carney as well. They've done a good job of transitioning to what we're trying to accomplish now, and they've answered the bell well. They understand the pass protection game really well, and then the run schemes are starting to catch up day by day. So each one of those guys will bring something unique to the table. But I think for Drew and Ty, they've done an exceptional job of answering the challenge that we've presented to them every day.
How cool is it as a running back coach here to come in and not only have that star power at the top, but have some what is perceived as quality depth to kind of work with right off the bat? That's not an empty room. That's not barren. You have a lot of talent.
Yeah, the whole goal is when you enter a room, you find out who the alpha is, and then you find out who's next. And obviously we knew who the alpha was in our room. that was pretty easy and self-explanatory. But we had to go ahead and try to figure out. Let's say anything happened or Damon needed a break, who can we trust to go out there? And I think each one of those guys understand that, and they'll have situational roles going forward. But that's the good part and the development part where it comes in, because you see what those guys need fine-tuned, and we kind of address it each week, and especially in the meeting room with film, and try to figure out, all right, this week let's work on this so we can make sure we're good at that. And each week we try to go ahead and pick something to work on, and those guys have done a really good job before.
And then you've got another explosive guy coming in the fall. How excited are you to be able to work with Jamar coming up?
Extremely excited, man. He's explosive with the ball in his hands. He does a lot of stuff well. He's going to give us some versatility to kind of package him in certain ways. I'm not sure he's going to be ready this year because we got to make sure we get his body up to par. But same deal. In the future, I think Jamar seriously will be a great name for Wake Forest football.
For you, Coach, what was the allure to coming to Wake Forest and being part of the staff?
It was an opportunity. I got a chance to speak to Coach Dickett on the phone, when he took the job, and he and I connected and we clicked, and I thought he had a great plan, a great vision, and obviously it's a challenge. I love challenges. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so every day was a challenge. But I love a chance to go ahead and start new and start fresh and kind of help younger guys go develop and accomplish their dreams. And I think he has a great plan and a great vision, and it's clearly defined for us and the players of what we're trying to accomplish. So that's something I wanted to be a part of, and I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, I worked with Coach Ezel last year at South Alabama. I actually worked with Coach Hayes at Michigan State for 4 years, so there was some connection there as well, some familiarity.
Is there anything about the Wake Forest experience so far that surprised you when you first got on campus? Was there anything about the people, the facilities, the area, anything that kind of took you by surprise?
I really did not know how small the university is. that was a surprise. I walk in one gate, and next thing you know, 2 minutes later, I'm driving through another one.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize how small it was and how there's not a lot of students here. So that did catch me for a shock. Coming from South Alabama, it was about 10,000. When I was at Michigan State, it was like 50,000. So you come in here to kind of like a 5,000 to 6,000 student range. It's a little different, but I think it's good for the student athletes. Obviously, they get more personal settings when it comes to academics, and they take their academics serious, which is also something. You're dealing with a different type of kid, a different type of young man when it comes to the mental aspect of the game.
The fan base who's here has been used to the same thing for a lot of years. This is a total makeover for them. The staff, a lot of the team, the high number of transfers. What is your pitch to the fan base, whether they're coming out for the Fan Fest on Saturday or they're looking at their season seats? What are you selling to the fans about what's different about this Wake Forest team?
The people. I know there was a great staff. I've talked to some of those guys, and they're great people, but we're trying to bring a new Wake Forest here, something that, put a product out there that they could be proud of, and we're truly adamant about that. Wake Forest is, the most winning university in the last couple of years. They won an ACC championship. In the past 25 years, other schools hadn't. So for us, we just want to go out there and put the best product on the field for Wake Forest and make these fans proud. We want to sell out the stadium. We want fans to come and be excited and not have to leave Winston-Salem to go enjoy football.